Well, you've seen the impact of the lockdown on children, the fact that so many have been going hungry during the lockdown. The issue now is around how many children simply do not have enough food. 14% of children living in homes when there is hunger. One of the big interventions decided by our government, decided really by our society many years ago, was to provide meals for children at school. Now, two organisations are going to court to try and force the Basic Education Department to properly implement this policy, which was suspended during the lockdown. You know, of course, of the disruptions to schooling. Arno van der Merwe is the Chief Executive Officer at the SA Childcare Association. Renee McFarlane is the Senior Manager for Research and Development at Equal Education. Good afternoon to you both. Renee, if I may just start with you. As I understand it, there is a legal duty on the Basic Education Department to supply these meals to children. Where are they actually failing?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Yes, there is a legal duty on the department, which was confirmed in the Gauteng High Court June last year, when the court confirmed that the right to basic nutrition is also a critical element of the right to basic education, and compelled the National Department of Basic Education as well as the provincial MECs to continue providing meals to learners, even if they are learning from home. Now, the department's own reports, which it had to file in accordance with the court order, shows that at least 1.5 million learners who used to receive meals are still not receiving meals. You've heard Nick Paul speak about the Newzroom, which is also really highlighting the plight of learners and the extent to which learners or young people are not receiving their daily meals. And then Equal Education's own research among our members who are high school learners, as well as their parents and school officials, confirm that learners are not receiving meals when they are not at school. And we know that learners continue to attend school on a rotational basis amid the pandemic, and that sometimes learners remain at home when their schools close as a result of a COVID case at their school.
I mean, this is such an important thing. Arno, you would expect that government would make this a priority, that the Basic Education Department would make this a big priority.
Yes, look, we had the same issue with the Department of Social Development, whereby they did not pay the subsidies that was due to children, and we have found the same thing, that the children, a lot of them, the only proper meal that they did get was from the ECD center. And that's why we instigated court action last year, and we won. Obviously, Parliament did take it up on appeal, but we have found that at least that pressure of the judgment then got to a point where they're now paying subsidies for the ECD centers or the children below 6 years of age. And it's crucial. It's crucial for them to get that meal.
Renee, are you finding there are big differences in some of the provinces? I mean, are you finding, I think Limpopo is one province that's really battled with this?
Yes, the Newzroom study also highlights this discrepancy between provinces. There's also, you've mentioned Limpopo, who has had mixed success with getting meals delivered. And then in a province even like the Western Cape, one would expect that in an urban province it might be a little bit easier to reach learners. But even in a province like the Western Cape, the performance is surprisingly bad. And so there is a real concern that both in urban and in rural provinces, there's a struggle with this rollout. And some provinces have even shown a decrease in the success of rolling out meals as they've progressed. And it's really just disappointing. You've had now a year where provinces could have anticipated that this situation is not going away anytime soon, that the rotational attendance will be with us for a while, and has had time to, come up with some plans to ensure that meals reach learners. And here we are a year later, and Equal Education is forced to go back to court to make sure that its successful court bid is actually implemented.
I must ask, Renee, I mean, the problem can't be money, right? Because the school nutrition scheme has been funded already. The money's been paid to suppliers.
Yes, there is definitely a logistical element to this problem. The problem is that ever since schools initially closed last year, the department has failed to properly innovate its mechanisms for delivering school meals. So it still has a system which relies on the fact that learners will be at school every day and that they will be provided with a meal when they're at school. Equal Education has made some practical suggestions to the department, including that they must allow learners to collect meals at the closest school to them, because sometimes a learner might be attending a school that's much further to its home than another closer school. We've suggested that scholar transport must be made available on days that learners are not attending school, because sometimes that transport cost is what would prohibit a learner from going to school to collect a meal. We've also suggested that the department must make provision for food parcels, so that when learners are at school, they receive a food parcel and they don't have to travel back to school to receive a meal. And then finally, which Equal Education has also played a part in, we've really emphasized the department, the importance of communicating properly with school communities. That's with schools, with learners, and with their parents, on the implications of the court order, so that the school and learners and parents are all aware that they are actually entitled to meals on days that they are not at school. Now, you asked a question about resources. There is a resource element to this, which is that the department says that providing food parcels is more expensive than mass producing meals at the school, and also that it's not able to afford scholar transport for all learners. Now, this also points to a failure of forward planning, because we had a budget in February where Equal Education called on Treasury to make more money available to the NSNP in anticipation, that there would be firstly an increased need, and also that the changing circumstances would involve additional costs. And it's really a pity that Treasury hasn't, seized that opportunity to allocate more money to the NSNP. And one would hope that as we approach the medium-term budget, that they will really reconsider that decision.
Oh, no, I mean, the impact of this on young children and on their families. I mean, when we see so many children going hungry, the long-term impact on them is going to be absolutely huge.
Yes, that is indeed the case. The cognitive development of the children is influenced, their social skills, learning by play. There's a lot of things that's going to happen that's going to influence the future. And this is why this is a very important issue, to get the children to be fed properly so that they can develop properly, so that our country as a whole and the economy in the future will be able to sustain itself and grow. And the children, indeed, they are our future. That's not just a cliche, that's the truth. So we need to look after them, and it's a matter of urgency and importance for our future.
And Anna, at the same time, I mean, when we look at the school dropout rate, which is so high, one way to keep children in school is to provide them with food. Their parents are going to send them off to school because they know they'll get a meal. The children themselves will want to go if they're hungry. You disrupt this feeding scheme in the way that it's been disrupted, the incentive to go to school is reduced.
Yes, that indeed is the case, and that is worrying. And honestly, we are not too sure how to handle that, because if you look at the infection rate of children, and I know there's a lot of people believing one side or the other side, but if you look at children and their recovery rate, one would wonder, why does it need to close schools? And I understand that teachers are, at the end of the day, they are at risk as well. But to look holistically to the whole issue of closing down schools, I think that's a topic for another day, but that is a big discussion point in any way.
I mean, Renee, it gets us to another conversation now, which is that almost all teachers have now been vaccinated. Maybe 3 weeks from now, those vaccinations will have taken effect. It does reduce the argument to close schools. We know that very few children get seriously hurt. The strongest argument to open schools is probably school meals, never mind education. You're off to court now. Do you think that you're going to be successful? You've won your other cases, of course, up until this point.
We feel very confident that we will be successful in our court bid. One obviously always has to see what happens in court itself, but the courts have already emphasized the importance of nutrition as a basic right to learners, also as a critical element to the right to education, and it's already put the obligation on the minister and the MECs to roll out this program and to effectively report on progress with rolling out the program and the challenges and how those challenges are being addressed. So it's now up to the court to really affirm that, that ruling and to hold the MEC and the minister and provincial MECs accountable.
Renee McFarlane, as Senior Manager for Research and Development at Equal Education. Arno van der Merwe, Chief Executive Officer at the SA Childcare Association. I really do appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. Well.